Alright, so previously we covered the stacking and padding customization. In this video, we will go through the fill color options plus the toolbar items for the time series visual. Now, as always, within the sample report, you already have a pre-existing configuration of the chart that you can play around with. But for us, we're going to go through the training view and actually build a chart and go through these settings step by step. So first things first, let's add an instance of the time series visual, resize it, and disable the background and title as always. As for the setup, it's something you already know by heart, new date plus the payout as our series 1. There we go. Now, for the coloring options, the first place on how you can adjust them is actually going to be under series configuration. Once you open that up, you can see that we can adjust the outline color and the fill color. So these will allow you to change the color for all series independently, but it's not going to allow you to place any additional effects on it. Now, what allows you to place these effects is a tab called Fill Color Settings. Here, the default mode is going to be Solid Fill. The two other options that you have here are Gradient to a derived color or Gradient to a single color. If you choose Gradient to a derived color, you can see that the settings that we have available are Slice Outer Opacity, Gradient Start Location, and Gradient Direction. The specific settings for this mode are going to be Lightness, Hue, and Saturation. So what I'm going to do here, just to play around with the visual, is I'm going to change the gradient direction to a vertical one. I'm going to adjust the hue to 90% and saturation to 40%. So this now looks a little bit closer to the overall theme of the report. Now, if I go to the third option, which was gradient to a single color, you can see that the difference here that instead of playing around with the lightness, hue, and saturation, I'm only going to be changing the gradient color. Afterwards, you have the same three settings: the Slice Outer Opacity, Gradient Start Location, and the Gradient Direction. Alright, enough about the fill color settings and other coloring options. Let's go through the toolbar items. For that, let's quickly close the series configuration plus the fill color settings, and let's open up the toolbar tab. Okay, there we go. And as you can see here, the time series visual actually has quite a bit of buttons that you can actually work with, and it also has two additional items that you can adjust. First of them is going to be the dark mode. What dark mode allows you to do is basically take the already existing elements within the chart, the toolbar items, and make them in a lighter version. So this is going to be really useful for those cases where you have a darker report. The other thing that you can adjust here is going to be the location of the toolbar. So by default, we're placing it inside the visual, thus saving some vertical space. For those cases where you want to specifically place the toolbar outside and not interfere with the chart itself, simply adjust the toolbar location from inside to outside. Now, as far as the buttons go itself, we have our back button, zoom out. I'm going to click on one of the columns to see also the reset button, linear and logarithmic switch, display time periods, display granularity, and also the info button. Now, going through the items independently. So for example, if I click on April, it's going to do a zoom in, right? If I click on zoom out, that's going to take me one step up in the hierarchy. If I click on back, that's going to do the zoom in again. So basically the difference between these two items is that zoom out will always take you one step up in the hierarchy, whereas the back button is always going to take you back to the previous action. So make sure you explain this to your users to avoid any confusion. Now, the third item, which is one of the most powerful ones in the toolbar, in my opinion, is going to be the reset button. What it allows you to do is it allows you to quickly clear all active filters from the visual and take the visual back to its initial state. So essentially, it works like a bookmark with clear all filters. The only difference is that this reset button works on per visual instance. So for example, if you're doing this with just one single visual, it might not seem that powerful. If you start to do some cross-chart filtering, that's where you see the power of that reset button, because it allows you to clear filters from one of them whilst keeping the other one completely intact. Now, next item is going to be linear and logarithmic switch. So if I click on it, you can see that the scaling model adjusts from linear to logarithmic. Next one is display period. So I can choose, for example, all data, last year, or last month. And the last one is going to be data granularity. It allows me to switch between different granularities without changing the viewport. So for example, if I choose month instead of year, you can see that I still have all the years available for me and all the months, but in this case, I have specific results for each individual month. So this is one way on how you can actually change the granularity and still keep moving throughout the chart with smaller time units on the x-axis. All right, that's going to be it for the fill coloring options in the toolbar items, and I'll see you in the next video.